everybody. I hope you're adequately caffeinated for this afternoon session. I'm going to talk about I'll give you a little primer on why eelgrass is so important and then how to restore it, hopefully. So we heard a lot about seaweed right now. Seagrass is a completely different thing. It's a marine angiosperm. It has flowers, it has roots. Kelp doesn't have that. In the northern hemisphere around Cape Cod and really all across the coast from South Carolina all the way up into Canada, we have a species that is called eelgrass. And it grows submerged. It can be intertidal, but it needs light to grow. So it can't grow really, really deep. Around here, it's about, the deepest I've seen around here was about 10 meters, so 30 feet. When the water's clearer, it can grow deeper. And seagrasses in general, as well as eelgrass, can form extensive meadows, which can be all the same species or it can be different species depending on where in the world you are. So why is seagrass and eelgrass so important? It stabilizes the sediment. This is a picture from Wellfleet, Duck Harbor, and you can actually see the elevation of the grass, how much higher up it is where the grass grows compared to where there's no grass. There we go. It traps and cycles nutrients and therefore improves water quality. It's a good health indicator. It's been called the canary in the coal mine a lot. And then, of course, I'm sure you've heard about carbon sequestration. It's incredibly valuable to store carbon. And there's been a lot of numbers around recently, and a lot of people are more aware of the value of seagrasses in general. So seagrasses only account for 0.2% of the ocean floor. It's basically nothing. But they do sequester 10% of the carbon that's floating around every year. They can store twice as much carbon as terrestrial forests per acre or hectare. And the estimated total carbon pool of seagrasses in general around the world is almost 20 billion tons. So it's a lot. And then another really, really important factor, especially around here, is that they provide food and habitat. They're nursery habitat for a lot of commercially important fish and shellfish. Think scallops. There wouldn't be any wild-caught scallops if there wasn't eelgrass around. But eelgrass in Massachusetts is in trouble. You might see that exact slide again today. I don't know, maybe. And since around 1995, Massachusetts has lost almost 50% of seagrass meadows, eelgrass meadows rather. And when you look at those different colors, when you look at the yellow block of color, that is the south coast of Cape Cod. So a lot of the loss of eelgrass in Massachusetts is because of that. It's also because of the loss of eelgrass at Billingsgate, which is in Wellfleet, which I will talk about. So there's this neat little tool online that you can all check out. It's called the Mass DEP Eelgrass Viewer. You can see a map of Massachusetts and you can just click through the years and you will see where the eelgrass is. Let me see if I can figure this out. There we go. So Wellfleet right here, this is about where Duck Harbor is. And just focus on this area right here as I'll go through. That was 1995, 2001, 2010 to 13, 15 to 17, 19 to 23. So we've lost all of this in the last 20, 30 years. And we are working together with the National Park Service, the Cape Cod National Seashore, Boston University, Mass Bays is also involved, the USGS to some extent. We're working to figure out why the grass is not coming back. So I want to show you some pictures of Wellfleet, Duck Harbor in 2003, We have a monitoring station out there, SeagrassNet. Excuse me. It's actually one of our oldest, longest running monitoring station in the world. That's something to be proud of. We have another one in Pleasant Bay, and the oldest one is in New Hampshire. But that also means we have a lot of data for Duck Harbor and for Pleasant Bay. So this is August in 2003. This is our transect B. And this is the same exact transect in 2021. Just to give you an idea what's been happening out there. So for SeagrassNet, like I said, it's been going on for a while. We're in a 25-year anniversary this year. There's around we're about at 115 sites now around the world. We're involved, 30 countries and more than 500,000 observations. And what happens with SeagrassNet is we go to the same exact spot every year. We look at 3 different depths so we can account for water coming in, water leaving as the tides are flowing. We account for temperature, all kinds of things that might be important to seagrasses. And along those transects, we take a bunch of variables, we measure a bunch of things and observations. And that's why we know that something is going on. This is not normal. But what is going on? So when you look at the actual numbers, this is percent cover. So we just look down and we estimate, is it 100%? Maybe it's 25, maybe it's 30. And it's been going down. The middle transect is about knee deep. So the middle transect in red recovered after 2009, but it has since gone down again. And this is another picture from 2003 and 2021. And what you can see here is that there's a lot of fragmentation. There's like bits here and bits there. And when fragmentation happens, it means that the current regime, how the waves come in and how the ebb goes out, it changes. The current regime changes. So it's more difficult to have a natural repopulate the area naturally. At least that's what we thought. So we wanted to make sure that we know the exact factors of why this is not coming back. And once we know, maybe it's something that we can fix. And if it's something that we can fix, we can potentially restore the eelgrass bed. So I talked about the increasing fragmentation. This is a little eelgrass patch that is still left. It looks very sad. So why did it go away and why is it not coming back? We have this big project, like I said, with the Park Service, Boston University, and a bunch of other institutions. And we figured out we would have to look at various things to learn more about the system. So the first task was to map the current extent of the eelgrass bed. And we're using Provincetown Harbor as a reference site and Truro as well, because they're actually doing pretty well. They're stable beds. We get a lot of seeds from them, a lot of flowering. And we're comparing this with Duck Harbor, which is about here, and Billingsgate down here. So the mapping is done. It was a big effort, a lot of hours. And then we're also, there we go. We're also looking at historic drivers, or potential drivers, I should say, of eelgrass loss. There was a lot of checking old maps. There was a lot of looking at landings data from fisheries. We looked at air and water temperatures historically, turbidity and light. We looked at satellite data, water quality. We also looked at boating and dredging, construction impacts, fisheries. And then we're also looked at land-based discharges, all the nitrogen, for example. And we also looked at wasting disease, which is a disease that affects eelgrass. Then we looked at green crabs. I'm sure you've heard about green crabs. They don't necessarily eat the eelgrass. They like to get at what's underneath the eelgrass, all the worms and tiny little clams. So they just snip it and then it floats away. They don't even eat it. We looked at the reproductive potential. Do we have flowers out there? Do we have seeds? Maybe it's because there's no flowers or there's no pollinators, and that's why it's not coming back. We looked at wasting disease. Wasting disease affects the efficiency of photosynthesis in eelgrass. We looked at light. Is there enough light for eelgrass to grow? We looked at wave exposure. Maybe the currents are just too strong, so the seeds can't settle. We looked at fishing stress and boating impacts. And then we took all of this to create a eelgrass suitability model to figure out what affects the eelgrass in this area. Now, unfortunately, this should have been done, but because of the government shutdown last year, the people who were supposed to do the modeling couldn't do the modeling. But luckily, they did the exact same thing somewhere else. So I'll show you the data from Pleasant Bay instead. So in Pleasant Bay, we looked at light availability, and you can see all the green, perfect eelgrass habitat. All the red, not so good. Then we looked at sediment suitability. Is it maybe too cobbly, or is it too muddy? Is it anoxic? All the green, perfect. All the red, not so good. We looked at water temperature, and we also included the predicted water temperature rise over time, which is about 1.5 Celsius. All the green, perfect. All the black, not so good. We looked at the current eelgrass distribution. It's always easier to restore an eelgrass bed right next to another eelgrass bed. All the green, this is where we have eelgrass in Pleasant Bay right now. This is in 2019. Then we looked at conflicting use. It doesn't make any sense to restore eelgrass when there's a mooring field or aquaculture going on. So all the shaded areas are either moorings or aquaculture. And then we also made note of any docks in Pleasant Bay. We looked at water quality. These are all our sampling stations. And this is our model output. So all the green is high priority or highly suitable for eelgrass restoration. Excuse me. That doesn't mean you'll have a lush meadow next year. It's a very slow process, but these are the areas of your highest chances of success in Pleasant Bay. Then we have the yellow and the orange, which are moderate and low priority areas in Pleasant Bay for eelgrass restoration. So we're hoping to do exactly the same model for Pleasant Bay. And then we learn more about what is the one factor that made it disappear. It's probably more than one factor. It's probably all of it. But we're also hoping to then get a map like this with different priority areas to hopefully restore eelgrass in Wellfleet. And then we have to choose our restoration method. Do we want to restore with little seedlings that we grow, or do we want to restore with seeds there's different methods. The Brits use caulking guns. They fill the caulking guns with seeds and then they inject them. Looks like a lot of fun. And then in the South, for example, in the Carolinas, they stuff the seeds into tea bags and just throw them overboard and hope for the best. So we'll see what we end up with if there's an area of high priority. And that's it for me.
Do we have any questions?
So my understanding is that eelgrass meadows are very productive in terms of spawning areas for fish and other living things, maybe plankton, maybe small fry and all that. So with a reduction in this, the eelgrass, has there been a subsequent either migration or do you know anything about what happened to the fish that normally come from these places?
Well, eelgrass meadows are essential to, for example, scallops. The eelgrass meadows in Cape Cod Bay are not doing so well, so there's no more wild scallop fishery close to shore. The only one that's left is in Nantucket Harbor, where the eelgrass is doing fairly well. So yeah, things are, if we lose the grass, we lose the fishery associated with the grass.